Okay. Bucky, thank you. Can we start now, Bucky? Excuse me. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, Bucky. Can we start? Let's do character creation.
Let's do it.
All right. So we had a request from Raven
Right.
in the Facebook group. Thank you, Raven.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about how to create it. We're going to make a character today.
Cool.
So last time we looked a little bit at this player mat, this player aid that you use during the game to kind of write your attributes down, set your dice, remember which ones you're using. We're not going to use it today because we're going to focus on the character sheet itself. So I'll set that aside.
Sounds good.
Okay, so to begin with, you are going to be an agent of ICON, the International Covert Operations Network. You've been recruited from your former life where you were exceptional in some way and they decided you would be perfect for this organization.
Cool.
So to begin with, let's give your agent a name, and you've already chosen a illustration for her. Just, we could glue stick it down or tape it down, or you can draw in there and put a little bit over here as well. Okay, so let's give your agent a name. What will her name be?
Well, I've thought about this.
All right.
So I'm going to call her Vesper Heart.
Hello, Vesper Heart. Okay, we have our beginnings. Now, the first thing we're going to do is choose her attributes. And these are 5 different attributes that just kind of describe her physically and mentally.
Cool.
They are nerve, and that is your willpower, your ability to withstand pressure, your ability to maybe impose your will on others a bit. It's your general will and nerve and resolve.
Okay.
Then there's your suave. That's your how charismatic you are, how persuasive, maybe even seductive, how cool you can be. But it also allows you to kind of notice when other people are doing that to you, so you can kind of resist their charms a bit as well if your suave is high.
Right.
Then we have your pulse. That is your physical strength, but also your stamina. So it's kind of your stamina and strength combined is your pulse.
Got it.
Your intellect, which is fairly self-explanatory, that's your ability to learn. That's your ability to retain and learn and reason. And then there's your reflex, which is your coordination, your agility, and your speed.
Okay.
So for each of these, in some role-playing games, you would just get a number, like maybe 1 to 18 or 1 to 10 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
In Top Secret New World Order, we use a system we created for this game that we call Lucky 13. And it's a die pool system, meaning that whenever you roll to try and accomplish something, you're rolling a combination of dice to try to hit the number 13.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of having a number for your attributes, we give you a die type.
Okay.
The bigger the die type, the better you are at that. Meaning that if you had, say, a nerve of a D6, you would add that to your die pool, of total 3 dice, and try to add them up. If you had better nerve, let's say a D10 or a D12, that means that when you roll your die pool, you could get higher numbers because you have a bigger dice.
Right.
So for each one of these, we could just choose the die type based on, we have what's called an array system in here, where you basically say, do I want to have a more specialized or a more balanced character? So we have something, I'm kind of see if I can show it on the screen here. We have something where you can just choose how many of each die type you want, but we also have the random attribute method where you can actually roll to see what you get for each one. So let's roll and have some fun with that.
Sure.
Get a couple of percentile dice.
This one?
Yeah. Okay, so for each one of these, what we're going to do, and we're just going to go down the line. In character creation, it's really up to you if you want to have the players roll all of their attributes and then decide how they want to assign them, or if you just want to go down the line. In our case, we'll go down the line just to make it quicker and simpler. So for each one of these, roll and I'll tell you what your result is.
Okay. So this is for nerve.
For nerve.
34.
34. That is a D6. So write a D6 in your nerve. For the next one, for your suave.
99. Wow.
That is
super
almost the highest
slobby.
possible. Yeah, that is a D12. That is definitely a D12.
I'm like, James Bond.
Amazing.
Steroids.
The next one is pulse.
61.
61. That's also really good. That's a D10 pulse. So you're going to be very strong and very hardy. Hale and hardy.
Cool.
And your intellect.
Intellect. 22.
You're not too bright.
Oh, no.
Actually, it's not so bad. It's a D6. If it had been a little bit lower, it would have been a D4, and you'd be the big, dumb, silent type. Strong, dumb, silent type. And then finally, your reflex.
92.
Oh my gosh, you have an amazing set of characteristics here. That's a D12.
Wow.
Okay, so that's some pretty good rolls.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have rolled a lot worse, and that's the chances you take. So these are awesome. All right, so these are your attributes. Now, the next thing we're going to do that we've set up your attributes is we're going to determine your health.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how much damage you can take, you know, in a fight or from an accident or anything else. Your health, as we mentioned before, is your pulse is both your strength and your stamina. So you take what's in your pulse and you write it right here on the health at the top. You write it for pulse. Okay, so what this means is all of these circles are your health circles. I don't know if we actually came up with a term for them or not, but your health slots or whatever.
Hit points.
Hit points. Perfect. Yes. So for your hit points, as long as the circle is unfilled, you have those hit points.
Okay.
You have access to all the hit points that are available for your die type. Because you go up to a D10, the only one that's unavailable to you is the D12, so cross all those out in the D12.
Okay.
And if you had a lower die type, you'd cross more out, but that's it. So what this means is during the game, if you start taking damage, you'll use a pencil, and you will go through and fill these circles in to show that you're taking damage.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you heal, you'll erase the pencil marks and show you're getting better. You'll also see that as you accrue damage, you might fill up all the spots in the D10,
Mm-hmm.
which would mean that your pulse would temporarily drop to a D8.
Oh, okay.
And so on. And so as you get more and more injured or damaged, your actual strength tends to wane. Although it can come back, it's temporary.
Okay.
Okay, so, and by the way, we're using a pen to fill all this in so people can see it on the camera, but of course, you do a lot of it with pencil.
Right.
Okay, so we've got your attributes, we've got your health. Now we're going to start with your clearance level and your reputation.
Okay.
Because you're an agent of Icon, but you're still newly recruited, and so you don't really have a reputation yet. Reputation is also a die type, but it's unique amongst all the things in that it can actually go negative.
Okay.
So we're going to start with a 0. So in your reputation box, write a 0. And what's going to happen is over time, as you prove yourself to be a very effective agent, as you prove yourself to be trustworthy and somebody that people just really want on their side, your reputation will go up. It could raise to a D4, it could raise to a D10, it could raise all the way up to a D12. And I think we even have in our reputation chart, there's even a D20 reputation, but right now that's not available to player characters. We've just sort of said that for NPCs, maybe Gandhi and Einstein get a D20 reputation. But as it goes down, so you can see different sort of descriptions of exactly what people think of you. And the same thing as it goes down, we probably don't take you all the way down to a negative D20 because that's Hitler. You're an international war criminal at that point.
Right.
And so you really wouldn't be a playable character anymore if your reputation had gone down that far. But basically, your reputation is only applicable to those who know you. So if you run into somebody who's never heard of you before, the reputation doesn't come into play. And so it's just kind of one of the ways that in the game we make sure that you act honorably and that you try to be a good player, being effective, and that you don't just become a murder hobo running through shooting everybody. So it's important to kind of gain your reputation as time goes on. And your clearance level, you can write a D4 there.
Okay.
Clearance level, you start out, obviously, at the beginning at the lowest clearance level. And this represents the type of assets that the agency will give you on a mission and also how difficult the missions are that they're going to send you on.
Sounds
At the end of each mission, the way that you perform will accrue mission points, and you can use those mission points to improve your character as well as raise your clearance level. So as you do better, your clearance level will go up. And it's possible that they might even drop you a clearance level if you do something really terrible. Right. So if you ever drop below a D4, you're not an agent anymore. You're going to be drummed out of the service. Right. So keep that clearance level going up. Next, we're going to choose a background. So this is kind of fun. The background is still on the front of the sheet.
Oh, okay.
And in the backgrounds, we actually have a list of 20 different backgrounds. We have a list of 20 different backgrounds that you can roll for. Mm-hmm. You can also just choose one of these backgrounds if you prefer, but we're going to roll because it's fun.
Yeah.
But just keep in mind, these backgrounds, we're not entirely limited to these. These are ideas.
Yeah.
Most players will want to choose from one of these. It makes it easier to work out within the game, and missions for Top Secret are written with these in mind. But as the administrator and players in your own game, if you want to introduce other backgrounds, absolutely.
Cool.
In the game, the difference the background makes is, I mentioned the die pool roll before. You roll 3 dice and you try to make a 13 or better. Mm-hmm. One of them is going to be your attribute die. Mm-hmm. And if you're trying to do something that your background is applicable to, so let's say that you have the background of magician, mm-hmm. like you were David Blaine beforehand. Copperfield Blaine. If you say, well, I'm going to go pickpocket somebody. Well, a magician is good at sleight of hand. You could definitely say that my background as a magician makes it a lot easier for me to do this pickpocketing. In the game, when you can invoke your background, you get to roll your attribute die twice and keep the better of the 2 rolls. So that's kind of what it does for you game-wise. So let's begin by rolling for your background, and this is a D20.
Okay. Okay, give me something. Ooh. 1.
A 1, you were an actor.
Wow.
You're an actor. And this is actually really, really good for a spy. Because as an actor, you could be great at impersonations, impressions, convincing people of things, passing as somebody that you're not. Excellent spy background.
Cool.
So go ahead and write actor in your background up here. Actor. Next, we're going to choose an impairment. Now, this is optional. You do not have to choose an impairment for your character. The fun thing about impairments is it gives you a lot of new role-play opportunities, as well as mechanically it gives you an extra specialized skill, which we're going to roll in a bit.
Cool.
So for this, same thing, you could choose your impairment. And if the administrator and the players want to pick an impairment that's not listed here on the chart, you can do so at the administrator's discretion. Okay. So we don't want somebody saying, well, my impairment is that I'm too good looking, or, I have a hangnail. It's got to be a real, and also you probably don't want to have the impairment of, I'm dead, or something. Pick something, if you're going to invent something that's not in here, it should be kind of in the spirit of this, something that adds to the role play opportunities, can make things more difficult for you in the game, but doesn't knock it out of balance. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and roll. So for this, we roll a percentile dice. Okay. So same as before, you're going to take your D10 and your D100 and give me a roll.
75.
75. Where are we in here? 75. You have a phobia. Okay, this is pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
So you've rolled a phobia. You have a strong, unreasonable fear. And we're going to choose from something in the phobia list.
Ooh,
back in Appendix
really
B.
Unreasonable.
Yes.
Like clowns or something.
By the way, we're looking. Oh, nice. So if your background was clown and you had a phobia of clowns, imagine the roleplay opportunities. So by the way, we're using the hardcover version of this, which was a exclusive that came with the Kickstarter. And so sometimes when I flip all the way to the back, it's actually going to the Adventure of the White Queen, which in the box set is a separate book, but here it's part of the hardcover. Anyway, I'm looking for the phobia list. Let's go back to that. And on the phobias, I believe we are rolling, is it percentile again? Yes. Okay, so roll another percentile, and let's see what your phobia is.
Okay. 94.
94. Okay, I'm squinting because I'm being vain and I'm not wearing my glasses. It is ombrophobia, the fear of rain.
What? Is that a thing?
It's a thing. Oh, these are... Merle did a lot of work on these. So Merle Rasmussen, he wrote the original Top Secret. He wrote this Top Secret. And phobias, he is just the king of tables. And he had way more than 100 phobias available, but these are really fun ones. He did all this work. So where did we go? Oberphobia, the fear of rain. Many fear the rain because of accompanying storm-like conditions. So I think storms and rains, so there's your spelling on it.
Ombrophobia.
Ombrophobia, like an
A
umbrella.
fear- Oh, not the fear of ombres.
Okay, so that's your impairment. This is actually, that's a really good role play, you know, because you could have an adventure like in The White Queen and the adventure that comes with this. There's a time when you have to storm a ship and it's a dark and rainy night.
Right.
You're going to have a hard time on that part of it, so that's awesome. All right, so now we're going to pick the languages. So you've got English as your native language, of course, and we're going to roll a d4 to find out your total number of languages. So if you roll a 1, you just speak English. But then we'll determine however many languages you speak and what the proficiency is for each one.
Okay.
So we got d4. 3. Excellent. Okay, so you're going to get 2 additional languages on top of English.
Oh, wow.
Now, just like before, we have tables that you can roll on or you can choose. We're going to roll because rolling is fun.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have here in the language table, it's a little bit unusual, the numbers that you see in it, because it actually goes from 10 to 59.
Mm-hmm.
What that means is we're going to roll we're going to roll a d6 and a d10. The d6 is going to represent the tens column, and the d10 will represent the ones column. And that gives us a number between 10 and 59, and that's how you pick the languages that you speak. So go ahead and grab a d6 and the d10. Yep. And let's get your first language that you speak other than English.
Okay.
46. All right, so 46 is Norwegian.
Wow. Wow.
And in our little, sorry, go ahead and write. I was putting this in front of the camera. I'll just read for it. So in our language table, we've listed, what the languages are. We've listed what the languages are, the number of speakers worldwide, and then which countries speak that. So the way we chose the top, 50 languages to include was basically by how many people speak it worldwide. So most languages you'd expect to find are going to be in here. If there's one that's not in here that you think is really good for your character, totally okay. We just tried to keep it to something that you're likely to encounter in your adventures. Let's roll for your third language.
Okay. 50. No,
65. 65. 65. So this goes up. So the chart goes from 10 to 69. I misspoke when I said 10 to 59. That would be weird. Okay, so 69, or 65 you said, is Uyghur. Interesting. Okay, so you speak Norwegian and Uyghur.
Wow.
This is going to be a very cool backstory that you can come up with as to explaining why you are speaking these particular languages. So this particular language, it's actually very widely spoken by over 10 million people. As you can see here, it's in the in the Uyghur Autonomous Region of China. Okay, so now we have your languages that you speak, and let's find out how well you speak each one.
Okay.
So for this, we have our language proficiency chart, and you're going to roll a single d10 for each one to find out if you're anywhere between elementary understanding, which is a d4, basic understanding, advanced, fluent, or native in that language, and just how well you speak in them. So go ahead and give a d10 roll for your Norwegian.
0.
You are fluent in Norwegian. So
okay. 0 is 10.
0 is 10, exactly. So you're fluent in Norwegian. That's a d12.
Wow.
You're not just fluent, you're native. So you are natively, you grew up speaking English and Norwegian.
Interesting.
And let's see how well you speak Uyghur.
Oh, 0. I mean 0.
Wow. Okay. So somehow you are perfectly trilingual in Norwegian, Uyghur, and English.
Wow.
So maybe your 3 parents that you grew up with had you or maybe you grew up in the Uyghur Autonomous Region, 2 Norwegian and English parents. Who knows what it was? We're going to find out when you figure out your backstory. Now we're going to go and pick your Tradecraft. We're not going to do any rolling for this because you'll see the Tradecraft, there's little lines going from the Tradecraft boxes to the attribute boxes. That means that these Tradecraft are based on these particular role or these attributes. So your combat is equal to your reflex.
Mm-hmm.
Your tech is equal to your intellect. Your SIGINT is also equal to your intellect. And your HUMINT is equal to either your nerve or your SWAV, the better of the two. HUMINT is your human intelligence, how well you can extract information and get on with other people and basically use people as an asset. So that's why nerve and SWAV are both really good ways to do that. Whichever one you're better at is what you're good at. So if you were to choose SWAV because it's your higher one, that means that when you're extracting information from people, you're charming it out of them. If, on the other hand, you had a higher nerve, you'd be a little bit more of an intimidating type.
Mm.
With your SIGINT, that's your signals intelligence, how you use communication tools, and tech is just technology in general. So both of those are intellect based. And then combat is tied to reflex in this case because it's much more about your agility than it is about your strength.
Right.
All right, so now there's one little twist before you fill these in.
Okay.
So we've mentioned that you get each of these Tradecraft scores based on one of your attributes. These are things that you learned when you were training as during your beginning days in Icon, when you were training at the Crucible, and they were teaching you all your Tradecraft. Mm. But no one's perfect.
Yeah.
No one can just study everything to the best of their ability, so you actually have to choose one that's going to be your weak area, the thing you weren't so good at.
Okay.
And we're going to cut that one in half.
Oh, okay.
So let's begin by kind of thinking about which one you want to cut in half. Which of these 4 do you think, okay, I'll accept that I wasn't as good at that?
I guess combat.
Okay. So what we're going to do then is your combat would normally be a D12, but you're going to write a D6 instead.
Okay.
You can use a pen if you like.
Oh.
Okay, and then for the rest of these, you just fill them in as they go. So your tech and SIGINT are both D6s. And then your HUMINT is a D12.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so now you have all your Tradecraft filled out. And by the way, when you cut the die type in half, you round up. So if it had been a D10, then there is no such thing as a D5, so it would get rounded up to a D6. Yeah. All right, so now before we go and we switch over to the specialized skills and everything else, we're going to fill in just one little area here about speed and running. So this is just based on the attributes you already have, and it's just to make it a little bit easier during the game if you ever have to decide, I'm going to run, how fast can I run, etc. So first of all, in Top Secret, we have got action points. Every round of combat or action or anything where there's, action happening lasts for 3 seconds. And the way we do it is we split these 3 seconds up into quarters. So each quarter of a second is 1 action point. You can see we have 12 little boxes here. Mm-hmm. Now in your case, because speed is based on your reflex, you have a reflex of a D12, so you can write 12 in your action points.
12.
Yeah. All right, so now if you had a slower reflex, you would start crossing out the boxes that are unavailable to you. But in this case, you actually have all of them, because with a reflex of D12, that means you're always the first to do things.
Okay.
And it means that when you want to do something, you can use your full 3 seconds of time that's available to do, so you might even be able to do more things in a round than somebody who's got a very slow reflex.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So we just kind of keep these boxes on here as a way that you can take a pencil and kind of cross them out during the game to show, okay, I'm doing this many things. We also have a little initiative tracker or an action tracker that is going to be coming out soon to make it easy to track as well.
Cool.
So the next thing that we'll fill in is the running area, because if you ever have to run, you know, you're in a foot chase or you just want to see how far you can run based on your reflex. So we have a little table in here. Oops. We have a little table in here that you can use to fill in these boxes. So you can either be sprinting, running, or doing what we call an endurance run, which is just basically a long, you know, how long can I just sort of lope along, a little bit of a jog, a marathon, etc. So for each one of these, we're going to put in the feet per round, which is, you know, how many feet per round can you cover, and then what's the maximum distance that you can go.
Okay.
Okay, so because you have a D12 reflex, we're going to look on the table here at the D12 die type for each one of these. So first, for sprinting, we want to know how many feet can you go per round. Sprinting, you can run 90 feet per round. Every 3 seconds, you cover 90 feet.
Sprint.
Yeah, for sprint. And then if you're running, you go a little bit slower when you're running because you do it for longer. So in this case, you go 60 feet per round when you're running. And endurance running is slower than that. You run 30 feet per round when you're running. And then you want to know how long you can keep it up. So we have the maximum running distance here. So for a sprint, you can run for 5 rounds, you can sprint. So we put both the distance, 450 feet, but also because it's more action-based, it's more about like how long can I do it. It's sometimes better to just write down 5 rounds.
Okay.
For the others, though, it's a little bit easier to just say how far you can go. So for running, you can run 3 miles before you get tired. So that's really, I mean, that's not jogging 3 miles, that's running 3 miles at 60 feet.
That's impressive.
You're an athlete. I mean, you're a very athletic actor. And then as an endurance run, you can actually run for 30 miles.
Wow.
So you're like a hypermiler. Is that the word? Or that's maybe for cars. But you know, there's people who can do better than...
Marathoners.
You can absolutely run a marathon. You can run farther than a marathon. So that's amazing. All right, so now we have everything all the way up to filling in the running and the speed. There's a few other things that we'll do in a minute when we pick your whole background, but for now, let's go to your specialized skills. So this is on the back of the sheet, so you can go ahead and tear off the sheet and just flip it to the back. All right, so now here on the back, we have an area to put in your weapons and equipment and these types of things. Usually what you'll do is select those during each mission. Like the administrator will tell you that for this mission, the icon station has offered to give you certain assets, or you might request certain ones for the mission. You don't typically carry the same ones all the time. You might end up having a couple favorites you do, but for right now, we're going to leave this blank. And the same with the weapons. A lot of times you might pick like one particular favorite gun that you like to carry. But we aren't going to worry about that right now. We're just going to worry about your specialized skills. Now, specialized skills, each one of these, we have a grouping of specialized skills in the book. And there are a number of ones here. In this case, you could, I guess, technically work with the administrator to come up with some specialized skills that were not in the book. It'd be kind of house ruling it. We're going to stick to what is in the book because this has been kind of thought out in terms of the different things that are available to you. So each one of these specialized skills is a grouping of different proficiencies. So for example, if you were good at asset handling, which is handling, you know, human assets in the field, there are a number of different things you'd be good at within that: assessment, development, recruitment, cold approach. And when you pick asset handling as a specialized skill, you actually get all of these proficiencies at the base level. So what we're going to do is go through and choose 6 total, because you have an impairment, which is your fear of rain. And we're going to pick the 6 skills, and then we'll fill them out here. Okay, so as you're picking your specialized skills, it's often kind of tempting to pick one that goes directly with your background, and that's fine, you can do that, but specialized skills are things that you learned while you were training. So it's really kind of up to you. If you feel that your character, if you feel Vesper is the sort of person who would have said, I'm already good at this, I'm going to train more in this, then that's the kind of specialized skills you would pick. If you think she's more of a polymath that would be like, well, I'm already an actor, so I'm going to pick completely different things, that's cool too. So illusion's a good one. That's kind of related to her actor background, sleight of hand illusion. So that's a great one. What are some others we might want to do?
I think driving. As an actor, you have to be fast and furious.
Yeah, both furious and fast. Driving is good. And driving is something that has different proficiencies for other things than just cars, motorcycles and trucks and all kinds of things.
You have to Tom Cruise everything.
Mm-hmm. Now, it does not include aircraft and watercraft, because as you can see, pilot aircraft and pilot watercraft are actually separate.
Specialized things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you got 2 out of 6.
6. Okay. All right. I want to be even with my Tradecraft. I think I want to forgery.
Forgeries.
That's a SIGINT.
Really useful to be able to do forgery, especially if you're going to be passing yourself off as different people all the time.
Right.
As an actor. Okay.
Tech. I want some tech. What is PSYOPs?
PSYOPs is great. PSYOPs is psychological operations, and it's basically your ability to do propaganda, to fool people, to convince them of things, to run PSYOPs against a particular individual or group so that you can kind of bring them around to a certain way of thinking.
Okay. Maybe I want that instead of illusion.
Okay.
Illusion is human.
Okay.
I don't really need human.
Yeah. Because illusion, sleight of hand it's magic tricks, it's all those kind of things. Useful, but the thing is, any of these specialized skills, if you don't pick the specialized skill, it doesn't mean you cannot do that. It just means you can only do it at the most basic level, because you learn all this stuff. You learn to pilot a watercraft and to jump out of a plane. It's just you don't get any additional skills if you didn't specialize in them.
Okay. Maybe forensics. Oh, that forensics.
Great. So forensics is all the CSI stuff. Yeah. Enhance.
Photoshop it. Tech. So that's 4.
Mm-hmm.
2 more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hand-to-hand combat.
Oh, that's a good one. So this means if you're choosing hand-to-hand combat, you're also going to be able to choose a fighting style.
Okay. That's fun.
So with hand-to-hand combat as a base specialized skill, that's just that you're trained to some level at hand-to-hand combat.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also choose to use another one of your skill slots to add a fighting style.
Cool.
So the prerequisite is hand-to-hand combat, and then if you want, since you've got the impairment that lets you do this, you could say, let's add a fighting style as well.
Okay.
All right, so the fighting styles, back here on page 75. All right, so this you can just kind of choose from these. We have fighting styles that come from all of these different countries, and in each one of these, there's a basic difference between each one, is whether it's better at striking or grappling distance. So a fighting style that's better at a striking distance means that it's better for punching and kicking, and you have more advantageous chances when you are a little further away. And grappling is when you're uptight, wrestling around with somebody, so you have an advantage there. So what you'll see is, if I can just flip here for one moment, with each one of these we have a list of adjustments. So for example, this one, Arnis, which is from the Philippines, this is like a knife fighting style, and in this case, because it's all about knife fighting from a distance and this kind of stuff, you go down a step.
Okay.
On your combat whenever you're grappling with someone. So it's less effective for grappling. But you go up a step whenever you're striking with a knife.
Okay.
Now, in real life, a lot of these things are more complicated than we make them sound here, and a lot of different fighting styles are actually good in more than one way, but we wanted to keep it balanced. So we chose what was kind of a signature moment for it. So, if you're ever tempted to say, well, but I watch MMA all the time, and I know that, well, we didn't want to have any fighting style was the superior, awesomest ever fighting style. So the idea here is that we kept them as balanced as we could. So with each one of these, you'll look at the effective distance, kind of where it comes from, and what are some of the things are that you can be better or worse at because of it. Right. So take a minute and read through and see what you think.
Oh, maybe I'll go with the Viking wrestling.
Because you're Norwegian.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe I'll probably be part of the back.
Okay, so I can't pronounce this. You can because you speak Norwegian fluently.
Oh yes, it's
Lasatuk. Okay, so that is you can just write Viking
it's
wrestling.
A lamp in IKEA, probably.
Yeah, you can do the IKEAN Viking wrestling. So what this means is that this is better at a grappling distance. So if you can get your opponent into a grapple, you're going to do better. So whenever you are attacking, you have one asset up when you're attacking, and whenever you're defending, you're one down, because this is a very aggressive style. So you really focus more on always attacking, so you're just not as good at defending. Okay, so now you've chosen these. Let's go ahead and write them on the back. And so for each one of these, the way that you'll do it is you'll put the general skill here, and we'll go back to the book in just a moment, because then you're going to put what the proficiencies are that go with that skill and put a line underneath, to kind of indicate that group. And each one of these, because you're starting, they're all going to be level 1. So you'll see there's a little arrow on each of these. We use this arrow in the game to signify step up. And if it's a down arrow, it would be step down. So what it is when you have, say, like step up 2, step up 3, then it's what we described before, which is that 6 becomes an 8 becomes a 10, and so on. But all these are going to be level 1 at the beginning.
Okay.
So let's begin with driving, and I'll give you what the sub-categories are, the different kinds of driving that you can do.
Okay.
And they are cars.
Cars.
And that's all about driving. Cars.
Oh, cars.
Crash survival / vehicle escape.
Oh, that's important.
Yeah. So this is kind of, you learn how to position your body the best, and in a crash, how to get out of the car when you've had an accident. Make sure you always wear your seatbelt. That's basically what it is. They make you wear your seatbelt a lot of times. You have like 5 seatbelts every time.
Know how to ejection seats.
Yeah. The next proficiency within driving is heavy trucks.
Heavy trucks.
So that's large commercial or military vehicles, from box trucks to specialized haulers to even basic construction equipment. Motorcycles.
Cool.
Which is any 2-wheeled conveyance. Scooters, motorcycles, whatever. And then finally tractor / trailer. So this is basically being able to drive the semis, the big rigs. Mm-hmm. And because you have to double clutch, you got 18 speeds or 20 speeds. I don't even know how many. I don't know what I'm saying. Stop. Okay, so now you can go ahead and put a line under this section to indicate that that's the end of that section. And then we're doing this in pen, but you would actually do it in pencil, but you can just mark each one as a level 1, meaning that whenever you do anything driving a car, you're going to get to raise your asset die for your combat by 1. Cool. And then as you get better and better, so as you improve, you might say, well, this time I'm going to learn more about motorcycle riding, et cetera, et cetera. What's your next one?
Is forgery.
Forgery. Okay, so your sub-skills, your proficiencies for forgery, there are 3 of them. Counterfeiting.
Counterfeiting.
FEI. It's a hard one to spell.
Counterfeiting.
Document creation. And then finally, handwriting analysis and forgery. That's one thing.
Okay.
So as a forger, you can obviously forge people's signatures and things like that, but it also means that you're better at noticing when others have been forged.
Makes sense, yeah.
Okay, so that's all your forgery skills.
Okay.
One for each. right, what do we have next?
Psyops.
Psyops. Okay.
Psyops.
PSYOPs, psychological operations, PSYOPs. This one has 3 different proficiencies. Brainwashing,
Yes.
propaganda, and psychological warfare. Psychological warfare is, it says, by tapping into the deep-seated fears of a victim or victims or by turning their beliefs against them, a master of psychological warfare can demoralize and weaken an enemy. It's all about making the victim believe.
I want to believe.
Okay, level 1 for everything. Forensics. Oh, there's a bunch of ones for forensics. This is great.
My. Okay.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different things.
Wow.
Okay, so forensics, the different proficiencies within forensics. So here's all your CSI skills.
Yes.
Ballistics. So this is, understanding projectiles and how they work and really being able to tell like what gun fired a particular bullet. Biometrics. So that's identifying a person based on physiological traits.
Fingerprints and stuff.
There's actually a whole separate fingerprinting. So biometrics is more about all the other markers that can come with it. Cloning and hiding fingerprints. So this is the know-how of recovering fingerprints that have been wiped away completely. There's a little bit of a trick to being able to actually recover those, and also reconstructing them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also the skill of being able to clone fingerprints and hide them yourself.
Okay.
DNA profiling. So this is being able to actually use the equipment that's necessary if you have access to it. You're not going to be able to DNA profile somebody with, a matchbook and a rubber band. You need the lab.
Yeah.
But if you have the lab, you know how to run the equipment. Fingerprinting. So this is very just specifically, so we said about cloning and hiding fingerprints was being able to lift the prints even if they are hard to find. I mean, they still have to be there. But fingerprinting itself is once you've got them, being able to identify and match. Leave no trace. So this is your ability, this is sort of an anti-forensics. You know as a forensic specialist what you're looking for, so you also know how not to leave that trace.
Right.
Toxicology. Understanding how chemicals impact the human body and other organic life. So this would be both, if you were going to poison someone as well as if you're going to detect that they've been poisoned, that kind of stuff. And now, so you see you've run out of space here, but it's fine. You can just kind of continue over to the next column.
Right.
Trace analysis. So that's analyzing materials around objects that might have contacted something. And then finally, vehicular forensics. And this is more about reconstructing the scene of an accident. What kind of car was here? If you've ever seen My Cousin Vinny, there's a scene where the lawyer, I forget her name, but because she's like a gearhead and a real mechanic, she's like, that tire doesn't come from a 1968 because they didn't make those kind of tires in 1968. You can tell these tracks were clearly made by a blah, blah, blah. That's vehicular forensics.
And also Jayson.
And me. Yeah, definitely. All right, so now we're going to get to the hand-to-hand combat. So all of these, you kind of marked off an area like this. Since hand-to-hand combat, we've got a special area just for fighting style down here. Mm-hmm. So you might just want to write hand-to-hand combat at the very bottom.
Okay.
Because you're not going to have other stuff underneath it anyways.
Okay.
So you're going to write your fighting style here, which was Viking wrestling.
IKEA lampshade.
IKEA lampshades. Oops, sorry, 75.
Viking wrestling.
Mm-hmm. And yeah. Then you put in the effective distance, which is grappling. And now this one, you probably want to make a note of this somewhere. We really didn't leave enough space in here to do this. So for right now, just go ahead and make a note underneath, even though later you might want more space for it. But you just put an arrow up. One up when attacking, one down when defending. Oh, no, that's your die type. You're going to leave that alone for just a minute. That's fine. But under here, 1 up when attacking, 1 down when defending.
Attacking.
Mm-hmm.
1 down.
When defending.
Defending.
Yeah. And then it's good that you put your arrow for the die type because you are going up 1 right now. So die type is level 1 just like the others.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then 1 for all of these. Here.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And now we're going to go ahead and go back to the front of the sheet and fill out your backstory and everything else. So let's take a minute and you can come up with the backstory and then we'll fill it out. All right, so you've been thinking about your backstory.
Mm-hmm.
So let's begin. What is your nationality?
So nationality is I am a Uyghur refugee slash Norwegian national. So
Okay.
As a refugee, I became a Norwegian national.
Okay, so for nationality, you are Norwegian.
Norwegian.
All right, and then before we fill in the personal history, let's just put a few kind of distinguishing features about yourself. So do you have any known aliases?
Yeah, so I tried to keep it with the Norwegian Viking theme.
Cool.
So Freya is a Norse goddess.
Okay, sometimes you're known as Freya.
Freya.
Other aliases?
And Valkyrie.
Okay, so sometimes people are like, we only know her as the Valkyrie.
Yeah. Kind of like that.
Nice. Okay, you can fill in. Now, height, weight, these kind of things don't make any difference in the game. But it's just kind of fun to add for a little bit of flavor. So you can fill those in if you like.
Okay. I'll just go with me. There.
Okay.
Hair, eye.
Oh, and then put weight here. And then hair and eye color.
Oh, crap. 5'9".
Yeah. I think it doesn't really matter.
There.
Yeah.
Eye brown.
Okay. And then do you have any distinguishing features? Does Vesper have any distinguishing features?
I'm just going to say she has a birthmark
Okay.
birthmark on upper arm.
Great.
There.
Okay. What kind of birthmark is it?
Oh, it's in the shape of a heart.
Vesper heart. Have a heart. It's nominative determinism is what it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Heart shaped.
All right. Cool. And then finally, let's fill in. Oh, you know what? Just for a little thing. For money, everybody starts the game with the equivalent of $3,000 US. Even though you can be from any nationality and background, we just use, since we're playing this game in America, we just use US dollars, just to keep things simple. If you're playing this game in another country, just go ahead and pick another one. So now let's go ahead and fill in your personal history. Just go ahead and tell me a little bit about Vesper Hart.
Okay, well, I think, as I said, I'm a refugee who became a Norwegian national. And since, I think all Scandinavian countries pretty much teach English alongside whatever their language is. I feel like everybody speaks English. So that's why I know English.
Right, so this perfectly explains the fact that you have 3 native languages.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
In terms of why I'm an actor, I think it was like a natural talent, and I think gradually I realized it's like a good way to sort of spread the word about like my Uyghur background, show some visibility to the culture and race and stuff like that.
Cool.
So yeah, and I got pretty popular, maybe not like worldwide, but
right, not Tom Cruise level, so you can still go out in public and be a spy.
Yeah, like art house, European.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so what you would do, and we're not going to have to fill this all out right now, you would fill that into the personal history there as well. And now you have your whole character. So now Vesper Hart, the Valkyrie, Freya, is able to go out in the world and begin her missions as a secret agent of Icon.
Cool.
Very cool. We're going to have to play with this character. We'll do this in some future videos.
Cool.
Okay.
Yay.
Thank you. This is great. Thank you, Raven, for asking for this. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.